What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the Thomas Gallery, and today, on this Sunday, have a drawing of Mr. Colin Kaepernick, I should say now, former quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers of the NFL, who was released, let go, fired, whatever you want to use it, from the sport of football, and is unable to get a job because he protested the unfair treatment of unarmed African American civilians of the United States by kneeling during the national anthem. Okay, that's basically it. He kneeled first. He sat. I should say first he sat. Then he decided to kneel as a form of protest during the singing or the playing of the national anthem before a football game. And this sparked a outrage, a new, almost a paradigm shift, I should say, of conversations and arguments by some, and just overall an opening of an old, of a very, very familiar and old wound, and that is the treatment of blacks in this country under the law of the United States, aka the Constitution, where he stated that African Americans, because it's been shown on camera that for a while you'll see the murder of black people by the unlawful murder of unarmed black people by police officers. And there will be camera footage of the incident taking place, and you can see the victims complying with the orders of the police officers and being killed, or you will see footage of the police officers killing the unarmed victim when there was no justification for it. Absolutely none. And the problem came about when those officers would be acquitted or let off from those charges. So you will basically see no justice. And then you will see riots happening in predominantly black neighborhoods, Ferguson and Baltimore, things of that nature. And then you just see civil unrest because the people were unhappy with the treatment, the injustice done. So Colin Kaepernick decided to take it upon himself to protest this by kneeling during one of our sacred moments in our country, and that is the singing of the national anthem. And many people called it unpatriotic and spit in the face of American democracy and freedom. And Colin Kaepernick's rebuttal to that was, it is his right to protest No, it is. No, it's First Amendment right, but freedom of speech, freedom of protest, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, freedom of the press. That's his First Amendment right. If he is unhappy with something going on in this country, there are lawful ways to show your dissatisfaction with democracy, with this republic, which this is a republic. And he said to himself, "Well, you know what? I'm going to protest. That's going to be my way of showing how I feel about it." So he did, and it created an uproar. And because of his protest, he was released. Well, he was basically released, but he got injured. I believe he got injured. The past season, and when the off season ended, when it was time for people to come back, to training camp and so forth and so on, you started to see that he wasn't getting any callbacks. He wasn't getting any callbacks to return to training camp and all that stuff. Because his injury, and all of a sudden, it started to switch from he's not playing because he's injured to people not wanting to deal with the quote unquote you know backlash of his protest. Like the narrative switched. Remember, those who remember, the reason why he was out was because he was injured. He was out first because he was injured. That's the original reason. So let's not lose sight of that part. And they used, by they I mean the owners and some of the media, used his protest as a slight against him. You know, basically saying, "Oh, well, we don't want the drama of this event." So, his protest was he's taking a knee before every game, and people saw it as unpatriotic, even though he said himself, this is not a disrespect to the military. This is not disrespect to the police. None of that. It's not disrespect to him at all. I'm doing this because soldiers fought overseas to defend my right to protest. And another part that people are forgetting about is that the military, there were many soldiers who actually agreed with Colin Kaepernick. Like we fought for him to have the right to do this. He didn't break any laws. We fought so he can do this. This is his right, and the military are the ones who protect his right to do so, overseas. So many of the military did not have a problem with this. It was people in America, many of the citizens of America who disagreed with his political stance, and that's fine. They have a right to disagree with it. That's fine. But what ended up happening is some people just took it and they were like, "No, how dare he disrespect the flag?" And he has no right to do this and do that and blah blah blah. And then you have people like President Trump. I don't want to say that, but yeah, people like President Donald Trump, who took it upon himself a couple of days ago to say wouldn't it be nice if these these NFL owners, whenever they found an NFL player disrespecting our flag, to get these son of a bitches out of here. Like his words. I don't usually use profanity on here, but he called NFL players, son of a bitches for quote unquote disrespecting the flag, and how dare they, do this, and just very disrespectful. Like the only one that was being disrespectful was President Trump. He was the only one being disrespectful. I mean, because no one called him a SOB, and nobody was doing that. So, so as of right now, Colin Kaepernick is unable to find employment, even though he said himself, I'm ready to play, I'm ready to go, but yeah, people who are like absolutely appalled by his stance, and they never want to see him have employment in the NFL ever again. And no team will pick him up. And he's pretty much the sacrificial lamb for athletes, who to stand up and voice their opinions about this situation. So now, me personally, I agree with Colin Kaepernick. I agree with him. I'm not an athlete, but I agree with his stance. I even agree with his method, because people think that this has always been the case. This hasn't been. The NFL is like 90 something years old. The NFL is only 90 something years old. What people don't realize is, I think it wasn't until 2009. It wasn't until 2009 where the military paid the NFL to, broadcast, the part of the national anthem where you would see the athletes performing. But sorry, not performing. You see the athletes, standing on the field during the national anthem. For the majority of the NFL's existence, the athletes were actually in the locker rooms preparing for the games during the singing or the playing of the national anthem. The athletes weren't out there. It wasn't until like 2009 where that happened. So think about this. All your greatest sports moments, all your greatest NFL moments from like the early 2000s and the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and the 60s and the 50s and the 40s and the 30s and the 20s, all those times, there were no athletes standing on the field during the playing or singing of the national anthem. There were none. And they called it play patriotism. When it happened, the military paid the NFL money to have some athletes on the field, and also to play, because they didn't even play the national anthem during the football game on TV. When you look at the old footage, or if you remember back to all the old games you saw on Sunday and Monday, they never even played the national anthem on TV. Only time you would see it if it was the Super Bowl. That's the only time you saw them play the national anthem during a football game on TV was during the Super Bowl. Any other regular season game, they don't even do that in the NBA. The NBA doesn't even do that. In the NBA, they don't play the national anthem unless it's the NBA Finals. They don't do that. The NFL didn't do that. Doing it in the NFL in the early 2000s and the 90s and all that, the only time you would see them playing the national anthem, like when you saw Whitney Houston singing the national anthem in the early 90s, that was a Super Bowl. That wasn't a regular game. That was a Super Bowl. But the regular games that you saw during the NFL season, they never played. They never showed it on TV. So I don't know why people are forgetting that one simple fact. They never showed it on TV. But I think in 2009, the military, the U.S. military, in order to boost their recruitment numbers, paid the NFL. They paid the NFL. I forgot what it was, some odd millions of dollars. They paid the NFL an amount so the NFL could show the playing of the national anthem and to show NFL players on the field saluting the flag during the national anthem on a regular season game. Something that had never been done before. And they did it solely. They only did it. The NFL only did it so they could boost the numbers of the military. That's why they did it. So when you see somebody like Colin Kaepernick protesting something, he never said anything against the military. Not one time did he say anything against the military. Not one time. He recognized the fact that the military, risk their lives so we can continue to have the freedoms that we do. He not one time ever said that this was against the military. He said this was a protest for the treatment, to protest against the unfair treatment of unarmed blacks and others at the being murdered by police officers. That's why he did it. And another reason why he said he wasn't going to stand for the national anthem, because he said, and it is true, if you look at the national anthem, I mean, we all know about the first part, "Oh, say can you see," by the dawn of the light will so probably hell by the twilight. We know that. However, the national anthem is more than just one verse. The national anthem has three parts to it. And the part that rarely gets talked about, like this. It was never spoken about when I was in elementary school. Never spoken about was the third verse of the national anthem. The third verse. People need to look up the third verse of the national anthem. All right? And in that third verse, it talks about the slaves that turned away from the colonies and went to fight on the side of Great Britain, because Great Britain had abolished slavery before the United States did. They had abolished slavery before that. And during the war of 1812, you know, Great Britain said, if you fight with us, you'll be free. And many of the slaves, because slavery wasn't abolished in the United States until 1865. So, and Great Britain was abolished before then. And Great Britain said, okay, if you fight with us, you can remain free. The slaves said, okay, well, bump that. I'm leaving this country, the United States, to go fight for Great Britain. So Francis Scott Key, who is the writer of what we know as the Star Spangled Banner, he writes the Star Spangled Banner, and in the third verse, there's a part the third verse is pretty much him expressing his dissatisfaction with those slaves who decided to flee the United States to go over to Great Britain to fight. And I'm paraphrasing, but in that third verse, he writes that pretty much we will find you. He pulled a Liam Neeson. I will find you and I will put you back in chains. Like, he expressed that, we're mad. We're basically mad at you for leaving us. You slaves are wrong for abandoning us and going over to our enemy. Like I said, I'm paraphrasing, but go read the third verse. Go read the third verse of the national anthem and see what I'm talking about. Go read the third verse of the national anthem. So basically, the song that people sing and people play at the beginning of a football game or a basketball game or any sporting event for that matter, any sporting event in America, has a verse in it that tells the runaway free slaves that basically you should be ashamed of yourself for running away. That's not my opinion. That's in there. So, but back to Colin Kaepernick. He is saying, I'm doing this for people who are unfairly treated, and don't receive justice under the law of this country until people who are treated unfairly, people who are done wrong, are treated properly under the law of the land. I will sit, or I will kneel. I will not stand as a sign of pride for the symbol under which people are being oppressed. And whether or not you agree with it, you can't deny the fact that the Ku Klux Klan, they use the American flag. The neo-Nazi protesters in Virginia, they were using the Confederate flag, they were using the United States flag, they were using the swastika flag. Right? And then all this is inflamed greater by a person in the White House, the quote-unquote so-called leader of the country with rhetoric that does not help the situation. It does not help the situation. He makes it far worse. Okay. I mean, then you have some colleagues of Colin Kaepernick. You have some athletes, former and currently playing, that are throwing Colin Kaepernick all under the bus. You have some very prominent figures in the NFL who seem to don't understand why he's doing it. Even when he explained to himself as to why he's doing it, people are more fixated on the act rather than the reason. When he explained his reason quite well, I mean, it's not hard to figure out. And if you don't know the reason why, go on YouTube or go to some clips on a sports channel and just type in Colin Kaepernick and protest, and then go to the footage of when he explains why he's doing it. And even if you may not agree with his method, you'd be hard pressed to find a reason why you disagree with why he's doing it. I mean, if someone says, I don't believe that blacks are being that some blacks are being killed for no reason, that these cops are just doing it because they like for threatening me. When you have footage of people following orders, with like Philando Castile, when he was in the car with his girlfriend or his fiance and their daughter, and he complies with the orders of the police officer, and he says to the police officer, I have a gun. And they're in a state where it's an open carry state, meaning that they have the right to openly carry a firearm. Okay? Openly. They have a right to openly carry a firearm. When he told the police officer, I have a gun, I have a weapon, I have a registered weapon, and I'm going, then it's okay. Well, can you produce the registration to let the police officer know that you got this? Okay. Even though he hasn't actually had to. If it's open carry state, he doesn't have to explain that. But he still took it upon himself to explain that. And every order that the police officer gave Castile, every order that he gave was followed. And to do all of that, to do all the following of instructions, and to still be shot and killed, because this was caught on footage. Like, this was on footage. He was caught on. The police officer was caught on footage by Castile's fiance, and still got off. And then they said, okay, well, we're now going to enforce a policy that all police officers wear body cams, meaning that police officers wear, a camera on their uniform, so there is truly transparency in the event that an incident happens You know, we have documentation, we have footage of this. We get the body cam, and we see on the body cam the same incident happen. Unarmed black people still being killed on the body cam. So even when we comply, there's no justice. Even when we get body cams, there's no justice. So it's got to a point where you have other athletes now, other athletes from other sports, kneeling. Like yesterday, there was a baseball player who was the first baseball player to kneel during the national anthem as a protest, and that had never happened before. Now we got other sports. We got the NBA. NBA has always been on the forefront of protesting and stuff. They, like with Trayvon Martin and stuff. The NBA has always been at the forefront of that. That's nothing new, but it's still going on. You got people like LeBron James, Chris Paul, the Golden State Warriors speaking up against these atrocities and speaking up against the comments of the person in the White House. And it's an interesting time. There's an old saying, may you live in interesting times. We are living in interesting times, and it's I just fear that it's going to get worse, which is weird to say. It's going to get much worse before it gets better. It hasn't gotten bad yet. It's bad, but it hasn't gotten bad yet, and that's sad. So anyway, this is my form of protest as an artist. My personality is I'm no stranger to dealing with controversy. I have no problem dealing with that. So this is my form of protest. This is the way I protest. I protest with my art. That's how I do it. I protest with my art. This is the way I do it. I'm not an athlete. I'm not on TV. I'm not famous, but this is how I protest. So this is my taking a knee with Colin Kaepernick. So, Colin, Mr. Kaepernick, if you see this, this is my way of showing my support for you. This is my way of protesting with you. So, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below. Like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you all later. Peace. Take a knee.